Hello, everyone. My name is Chase Greenhouse Pasinger, and I am filming this today to have a discussion about the roles of a special education teacher, current helpful dispositions that I have that are going to help me while teaching, dispositions that I need to improve upon, as well as biases and how biases may affect my students and the relationships I have with their families. So, the first topic that I wanted to discuss is the role of a special education teacher. The first thing that is very distinct in my mind that comes up when I say the role of a special education teacher or teachers in general is that teachers are responsible for the growth and maturation of their students. This means that they are responsible for their growth as a person, but also as a student within their classroom. So, speaking of, in context of the growth within the classroom, I think there's some things that we can look at to really see if we are fulfilling our roles as teachers. The first thing is assessments and assessing our students. To me, it's vital to make sure that we are constantly assessing growth within our students so that we can use evidence-based strategies to, either, hey, let's figure out an intervention possibly to help this student grow, or to either say, hey, we're on the right track here and the strategies that are currently being employed are working for us. The second part of that I feel has more to do with the students themselves and their distinct diversity and uniqueness that each of them has. So I think it's also the responsibility and the role of a teacher to make sure that they understand each one of their students and how unique they are, what differences they do have. And this moves, I think, beyond their disabilities, because I think as a special education teacher, yes, we understand that each one of our students has a diagnosed disability, but what's beyond that? What causes our students to think and to do the things that they do? Because I feel like if we have that window into how their brain works, that we at least have a chance of being able to reach them, which means that we have a chance to be able to teach them and help them grow in certain ways. I also think that looking at culturally appropriate and trauma informed methods within the classroom is also important. So having cultural context of how a student grew up, culturally, what does school look like within that family? How does that affect their perspective on school and their learning? I think all of these things have very profound impacts on, one, getting to know the family and the student, but also two, how to intrinsically motivate our students and how to get the most out of them. I think that role of pushing our kids is ever present, and pushing the boundaries of like, hey, we need to ensure that they're growing, and how can I get them to do so? And not everyone is the same, and not everyone has the same mechanisms that allow them to learn. So what does that look like uniquely for them? In addition to that, us being trauma informed within the classroom. I think oftentimes within special education, we look at a student's disability and we say, oh, that's the reason why they act the way that they act. Discounting environmental factors or cultural factors that we spoke about earlier, but also just kind of looking a little bit deeper, and maybe what trauma may they be carrying that also is affecting them each day. Within those roles also of a special education teacher, I think we as teachers are responsible for growing ourselves as professionals. Um, I feel that learning is not a one-way engagement, or it's not a one-sided thing. What I mean by that is that, yes, we expect our students to learn, but we as teachers are also committed to becoming lifelong learners. The next thing that I would like to discuss, as far as the roles of teachers in general, would be advancing our profession and ourselves as professionals. So I think that it's vital that we, one, work as a collaborative team within our school districts and within our classrooms. What this means is that anyone that is invested in the growth of our students, collaborating with them, talking with them, sharing templates, being able to take advice from someone, take some criticism from others, and being able to find some middle ground or cohesiveness to be able to teach our students. I also think taking some leadership roles and becoming a leader within your district is very important. I think kids need to see us as leaders and as mentors, And it's one thing to kind of talk that talk, but it's a whole nother thing to like, hey, show them I'm a leader. Next, I wanted to transition into speaking about my current dispositions and those dispositions that I actually believe I have a strong grasp on and that are going to guide me as a teacher. The first one is that I do believe that every student can learn and has the ability to learn. No matter their disability, no matter their trauma, no matter the level of any of those things going on in their lives, I feel that they have the capacity to learn. And I'm going to do everything I can each day to make sure that they are learning something. Um, I think that, secondly, I am very good about understanding culturally appropriate and individualized learning. I myself come from a BIPOC family and understand how culture and how we view education within my culture can appropriate certain ideas or thoughts about education and also behaviors. So being aware of that, I think, is something that I do well. And individualized learning, I feel that I really enjoy speaking with and learning about each one of my students, and all the kids that I interact with. I want to know who they are and what they enjoy and what they think is best for their lives, and how they should be interacted with and all of those things, because I think having that interpersonal relationship with each of them really allows you to understand what they need to be pushed. I'm someone that promotes social justice and believes in that cause and making sure that everyone has access to education. And I think our system hasn't done the greatest job. I think we've made some steps forward, but promoting that social and sense of justice as far as what's fair and what's right, and how we can be ethical people is something that I do well. Um, segueing into the next one, ethical behavior. I always try to hold myself, one, as a professional, but two, as someone that's honest and trustworthy. I think that is something that parents, faculty members, and everyone needs to understand. You have to model integrity with consistency, and I think that I also do that well. I think that I'm a pretty kind and warm person. I have, I believe, a good sense of what it takes to be kind to people. I believe everyone should be treated with respect, and even when at times they don't treat you with that same level of respect, and I really try to live my life by that. I also believe in being a servant. I think all teachers at some level have to understand that they have a responsibility to community, and serving. And my family has really fulfilled this with me, and embodied that with my life, and making sure that I understand that it's a servant mindset, and not that it's to not to gain yourself personally, but my first responsibility is to my students and my community. And lastly, I feel that one of the most important disposition is that I'm truly committed to teaching. I believe in teaching and helping students of all walks of life grow and become better people. There's nothing greater in my life and in my career than to see students that I helped years ago that are now in college or at a job, and that thank me for what I've done for them. So I think those things are some of those dispositions that I do possess that are strong, that are going to help me. Some things that I think, some dispositions that I need to definitely have some better knowledge on and some work on is supporting curiosity. I think I'm a pretty intriguing guy and a fun guy, but how to inspire kids academically, to be curious and to learn and to become learners, is something that I really feel that I need to grasp a little bit more. And lastly, just really, I don't have the experience necessary to kind of push some of the tactical things forward that teachers are responsible for: lesson planning, learning strategies, etc. So just really learning what that looks like for teachers and what's effective and what's evidence-based is something that I need to really work on. Lastly, I just want to kind of touch on the lack of open-mindedness, and as far as biases and how that might affect certain families or people. First and foremost, it affects our kids. If you bring your biases to the table, it means that you're closed off to learning and to accepting who they are as people. And I don't necessarily think that accepting people for who they are um, is a prerequisite of having to agree with everything that happens or everything someone else agrees with in their life. I think you can have humility and understand and empathy and understand, where a person is coming from and how that affects their perspective and their ability to learn, regardless if that's something that is distinctly tied to your ideologies or how you were raised. I also think that bringing cultural biases um, really affects families in that teachers aren't able to reach them. I've had so I've heard of so many stories of teachers not being able to reach a family, which affects their ability to reach students. And I think I've even heard stories of teachers not wanting to do it because culturally that's something that they feel um, would be hard or daunting. So I think overall, our biases can ruin your career, can ruin the perspective of how people look at you as an educator, but ultimately can ruin um, a student's life. And I think that it's important to check those biases at the door because as teachers, our role is not to judge people. Our role is to teach them and to help them grow as people and as students.